Yeah.
You never know. Actually, I was being pretty tame.
We are now recording, sir.
All right.
Well, actually, do we have the microphone on you?
Microphone is on. Are you seeing audio level?
Yes.
Mic check. Mic check.
Oh, okay. So you put my lavalier on?
Yes, I did.
We're good.
So we're recording?
Yes, sir.
All right. So audio sync. All right. He was having sync issues earlier.
We're probably still having sync issues, but we'll see.
Yeah, those are tough.
Right now, man. The bromance is over.
Okay, here we go. Audio sync for real. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate you coming out this early to talk about one of the things that I just freaking love to hate, and that's ransomware. So what we're going to do today is go over a few things. One, like who I am, what I do. We're going to also give you an intro into a tool that I've been writing that's in really, really ugly alpha phase right now, but we're going to be making it open sometime this next week. I thought I would be releasing it Q2 of next year, but got a little extra spare time, and it's now at a point where it's publicly-ish almost available. There's a couple sharp edges, and I'll talk about those. And then talk a little bit also about CryptoLocker type ransomware, what you can do to prevent it, because man, if you're getting hit with ransomware, it's a symptom that something else is wrong in your environment. Actually, it's a symptom that there's a whole lot else wrong in your environment. It's not usually just one thing. And then I'll talk a bit about prevention and detection. And then also, I need y'all's help. I really do. And that goes for you too, Internet. I need your help. Because
Out of frame, but you know.
now I'm in frame.
Yes.
I need your help, Internet. Thanks for helping me zero it in. By the way, hey, give a round of applause for Adrian and the AV goons. All right. So, without further ado, here's who I am. My name's Mick Douglas. You can follow me on Twitter at BetterSafetyNet. And my day job is I work at a Dave Kennedy company where I'm the digital forensics and incident response practice lead at Binary Defense. So Dave's first company that he founded was TrustedSec. They're the pen testers. Binary Defense is the defending team. So we're the blue team. And what I do is when things go bump in the night, me and my crew roll in. We try to resume business as usual as fast as we can, and we do an okay job of it. To the point of it that I'm not doing that stuff full time. I also help out with sales when I'm not busy in my spare time. Also, I love, as you can tell, I'm really passionate about this stuff. And in my other spare time, I teach for the SANS Institute. And I teach a couple other classes. But the one that's coming up next is in March in Florida. So if you're have a nice long winter and you want to go to sunny Florida, you can learn about hacker techniques and incident response. So, without further ado, let's start talking about some ransomware. There's three different groups of people who like ransomware. You've got the authors of the ransomware who sell that to the attackers. They're making money. They're happy. Of course, there's the attackers. And they love getting those bitcoins. One thing that you need to understand is that the attackers and the authors are two separate groups. Writing the software is a different skill set than deploying the software or those ransom bots. So they are different skills. Different users tend to do those things. And attackers love using it because it just works. Doing normal attack and data exfiltration, you might not know what you're going to get. Credit cards are cheap as snot on the black market. Do you guys know what an average credit card goes for on the dark nets? 50 cents, man, you are well heeled. Believe it or not. So, it depends on the card. So if you've got a Visa Black or one of those ultra high-end ones, it might go for maybe as much as $10, maybe. But most consumer cards, for Joe Thousandaires like me, those are going to be honestly around a quarter or so. And as soon as the breach notification goes out, comes a fire sale. And the value of that credit card plummets really fast to the point where you can actually buy after it's been known in public, like at the Target breach and the Home Depot breaches, those real big ones that got a lot of notice, you could buy literally thousands of credit cards for a single penny. So it's kind of a weird space, and attackers hate that because it's an unpredictable market. With ransomware, they actually have good tracking and understand what their attack tools are going to be bringing in. So it's a revenue that they can rely on. The authors love ransomware, though, and this one really kind of threw me for a loop. The authors love it because they have to make new versions of the ransomware. As good guys like me and my crew at Binary Defense are figuring out how the tools work and what they do, and how they encrypt and like what to look for. The tool creators need to make new versions so they can keep on reselling their new version. And of course, the IR cleanup crew loves it. This is a little bit of a troll. That's why we got the dancing troll here. We love it because we get paid whether you have to do the Bitcoin or not. So ransomware is driving a weird economy right now. And I'll be honest, I'm tired of dealing with ransomware. A couple months ago, we had a situation where a client called us up, and they were super unhappy because they got popped. They didn't have backups. They didn't have anything. And they were like, we do not want to pay the ransomware. And I was like, all right, you don't have to. And they're like, well, we want these files back. I'm like, you got to pay the ransomware then. And so it's really horrible. And, you know, right, like, I feel bad because they're a dissatisfied customer. You know, they're like, well, we wanted you to come in and clean it up, and I can't do that. So what I've done is kind of vented my frustration in a different way rather than turn into alcohol and, you know, hard partying. I'm instead doing a different approach, and I'm making a tool called Suspect. And what Suspect is a pretty interesting thing. I'll show you. Let's just, let's get this going. Hey, Adrian, what are you seeing on the stream? Are you seeing the slides or?
I'm seeing the slides, yeah.
Okay, that's not what you should be seeing.
What should I be seeing?
Well, hold on a sec. When I said what could possibly go wrong with the demo, this was not what I was anticipating. All right.
I see pretty much whatever you see up on the screen there. Now I see a bunch of numbers running by.
Perfect. All right. Here's what we got going. This is simulated malware, or ransomware. Now, I mean, I could do a real demo with ransomware running, but you don't really see it. There's nothing to see. So what we got here is a random number generator that's just running. Now, the thing that's weird about this random number generator is it's running from a directory that a user normally wouldn't execute scripts, programs, or other sort of executables from. So, this is a little suspect. This is a little weird. Now, it's happily running. If we weren't piping the output to the PowerShell prompt like that, you'd have no idea that it was off doing its number crunching. Now, what's cool, though, is with Suspect, as soon as I run it, boom, paused. Now, let me zoom in here. Whoops. There we go. Suspect process detected. It has been paused. Enter the process ID to resume, and it pre-populates that process ID for you so that you can resume the process. Now, here's the thing. The reason that I designed Suspect to work this way is I don't know what you guys are going to be running on your computers. I don't know, like, how your systems are working. And part of the thing that scares me about some of the next generation tools is that they'll just like stop execution of things. Now, if this had been like a business critical application, yeah, like maybe the manufacturing line would have stopped, or God help you if this is something having to do with a hospital. You know, like that, like I really am concerned about that. And this is where you guys' feedback and internet, your feedback will be very, very much welcomed. I cannot overstate it. I need help in figuring out how to vector in on this. We'll get to that. But see, what happens is you get this prompt and it says, hey, pause the execution of the system. And if I hit cancel, it stays paused. But if I hit OK, it will unpause that process, and it resumes back to business as normal. So if the user knows that it's a good process, we're doing good. If it's not, they can just cancel it, and we're good to go. So that's how Suspect is. That's what it does. And thank you, demo gods.
If you run it again, will it pause that up, or does it whitelist it?
So right now, the way it's working, it pauses. The normal way that it works when it's in persistent mode, it will actually, okay, let's back up a second. This demo is kind of a fake out. With this running in persistent mode, this wouldn't even get to run, right? This random number generator would just auto pop this. And then so I disabled it, I kind of tweaked it around. Normally what happens if you say this is okay, it will go on a whitelist. And the way it does the whitelisting, by the way, thanks to my brother Andy, who came up with this idea, when it gets whitelisted, it doesn't just whitelist the process ID and the application. It also takes a hash, an MD5 and a SHA-1 of that executable. And as long as that file doesn't alter, you get to be put onto the whitelist. So
if it does get altered, then
it would trigger again. Yep. Yep, and that's to prevent that, like if somebody does any sort of packing or XOR encryption or something to play with your executables. Yep. So, I can tell you got probably a few other questions. Let me dive back to the slides, and I'll show you like a little more about how this works. Hey, all right, cool. So demo worked, yay. It's going to be on GitHub soon. There's a couple minor tweaks that I need to make to it. But sometime next week, I'm hoping around Turkey Day. So be checking out Better Safety Net on my Twitter feed is where I'll announce it. And it will be up on GitHub. Currently, it's a private GitHub repo. And I'm just going to basically nuke the private and make a whole new from scratch public one. Now, here's where I need y'all's help. And internet, please, this message also goes out to you. I need help. The way Suspect works is it looks for odd executions. And some of the things that it uses for detection capability is it will assume that things running out of the Windows directory, except for like the Windows temp directories, but in the main, your system Windows files and program files are going to be considered somewhat safe. And those will not pop. There are some executables that I've run into that run in the user's path, so I need help in finding those. And I'm also working on making it so there's config files, because if you've got like your own paths that at work or at home that you're installing software to that are outside of program files or Windows, you can basically create a whitelist for that directory and allow it to work. I need help, though. I don't know what the normal directories are. So I've taken a guess, but really would appreciate some input on that. The other thing is, as you saw, the user experience, that's what I mean by UX stuffs, user experience is pretty raw. I'm not actually a fan of what the way the demo works, where it pops up and says, hey, this process ID was suspended. The idea is that I want this to be something that you can put all over your environment. And, right, like Bob from accounting ain't going to know what to do with that. Like, he's going to see that and just be like, yeah, totally. Like, keep running, right? So we need to make it so that it's something that works better. Maybe we don't even pop a warning to the user, or maybe it's a notification saying, hey, something got paused on your system, and instead it sends a notification to like the help desk or the InfoSec team, and then they can unpause that. One of the really, really cool features of Suspect is I'm taking advantage of a utility by the PS internals team. Much love to you guys. They have a tool called PS Suspend. And I'm using that API to pause the execution of programs. The thing that's straight up baller about this tool is you can remote into a desktop and unsuspend. So I could, I have stubbed out a, like an enterprise mode where you can actually go into the machine's query and see what processes they have suspended, and you can unfreeze them. I don't want that to be, though, like I could see that being like a world of hurt for the help desk where they're just like all day doing that. So like I said, user experience stuff is going to be tricky. In terms of alerting, I don't know what works for you guys. PowerShell is incredibly awesome. A buddy of mine, Adam Crompton, hey Adam, and I've been doing a lot of research with PowerShell. We can do things like sending it to syslog for alerting, sending email notifications, like let me know what sort of notifications and stuff work for you guys. Right now I've got it so it will send syslog. You can point it to like your SIM or your log analyst engine, or analysis engine. So I don't know, like I don't know really what to do. I've got like part of an engine that works, and it's got some interesting promise, but I need more. Like I need the body paneling around it, right? Like I feel like we got a frame and an engine, but it ain't a car yet. Now, how this works, the really cool thing about how Suspect works is that I'm using built-in OS commands. There's not much that you need to install. There's a PowerShell script. There's the PS internals component that if you don't have installed, it will fetch it via web request for you. And then the rest of it, the heart of it, is a series of WMI eventing and WQL. So WMI is a API that allows you to create events based on conditions. And what you saw there was the process execute condition. So whenever a process starts, a WMI query will trigger, this event will trigger, and the WQL query that it's looking for is this executable object, whether it's a COM object, a PowerShell script, whatever, regular old exe, is it from those current directories that I mentioned earlier, the program files and the Windows directories? If it's not from those, start doing a little more like research on it. And some of the things that it does at present is it takes a hash, and if it's not a known hash, it will throw an alert. And that's where that came from. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but we got like a submarine movie going on in the other room. So apparently it's time to dive. So that's kind of it with how it works. I mean, it's kind of simple, but there's a lot of little interesting tweaks that's going on behind the scenes. One other thing that's really, really fun is that not only does this work based off of the directories, even if the executable is coming from a quote-unquote safer directory, it will look to see what DLLs are being run on that system or on that particular executable. And the idea behind this is I want to stop DLL injection attacks, or at least make them significantly, significantly harder. So what we're doing is we use the modules option for executables and look at the DLLs that are getting invoked. So now if you do a DLL injection attack, busted. Now, there's a couple ways around that, but we'll get into that nitty-gritty at some other date. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Do you guys have any questions? No? All right, now this is going to be a weird talk. Why shouldn't you be using my tool? Here's the deal. The fact that we have to have something that's doing pre-process or pre-execution processing, to me, just like blows my mind. It doesn't make sense. You shouldn't need a tool like Suspect. So, what I'm saying is use Suspect as a final safety guard, and, eventually, hopefully it might be something that many folks like. But I'm always going to tell you this. for any of the binary defense clients or any of my SAN students, I'm always going to caution them that this might not be the first club that they should pull out of the golf bag. And the reason why is there's so many other things that you can do to defend against ransomware. There was a talk yesterday where an FBI agent where she was talking about how the bad guys are basically curb stomping us with ransomware. And it's true. It's bad. And a lot of people are like, hey, do we just need to pay it? And I say no, don't pay it. You know, you're funding some really bad people. That said, if you are going to pay, you know, use a reputable place like Coinbase or Cryptsy, because you don't want to get defrauded while you're paying a ransom. You laugh, but I've had that happen to a couple clients. It was like getting kicked in the teeth and in the nuts. It was not cool. And the fact of the matter is, we as an industry got to understand that ransomware is not going away anytime soon. And there's a variety of reasons for that. Right now, it's too easy for the bad guys. Suspect, I'm hoping, is part of the solution. But believe it or not, compared to some of the other things that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, it's not as effective as some of these other things that shouldn't even, you should already be doing, rather. Earlier, when I did the talk, at the start of the talk, I said that ransomware is an indicator that you've got multiple problems, multiple symptoms are going on in your environment. That's true. I have not found any ransomware that I consider super elite, super sneaky, or like zero-day stuff. Doing simple, easy stuff will fix your environment really well and make it significantly more crunchy and hard for the bad guys. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be doing all these things. But if you do a combination of the things that I'm going to go over, the bad guys will break their teeth on your environment. Here's some of the things you all need to be looking at. Missing patches, for goodness sakes. We had one that we did a little bit of disassembly on from a client. And it was a worm kind of bot type behavior ransomware. And it was going after a patch that was, get ready for this. So we found this ransomware, and it was about 4 or 5 months ago. And the patch that it was going after, the missing patch, was 3 years old. Here's the thing that was really sad. Doing some research on like how different sectors were hit, it was effective. It wasn't the most effective one, but it still was economically viable for the bad guys. 3-year-old patch. Come on! That's horrible. Basically, you're not paying ransom. You're paying a stupid tax at that point. There's nothing for it if you're missing patches that far back. Also, poor configurations. I got a mixed feeling on this one. I'll tell you this. I've been doing computers now for decades, and Windows is getting a lot better. If you guys remember the like NT 3.5 and NT 4 and Windows 2000 days, you remember like you could basically get admin on them by looking real mean at the computer and be like, oh, here you go. That said, they still ship with pretty odd choices. Run some good config checks against it. Amanda last night was given a talk that I highly recommend that you check out that talked about how you can harden your system. Microsoft Security Baseline Analyzer. Totally free. Free as in beer. Run it against your system, see what the score is, and you'll be sitting so much prettier than if you hadn't. You could also use the CI security benchmarks. Raise your hand if you've read those things. All right, if you don't have your hand up, go do yourself a favor. Go to CIsecurity.org. It stands for Center for Internet Security. And they have these benchmarks, these reference guides. Now, those of you who had your hands up, would you say that they were exciting reading? Okay, now that's a nice answer. The answer was it depends on what you're looking for. The real answer is no. These things are drier than dust. They're the cure for insomnia. Don't operate heavy machinery while reading these. But the thing is, I do pen testing from time to time just to keep my teeth and claws a little sharp. And I'll tell you this, going against a system that has been hardened to these benchmarks is infinitely harder than a stock, released to manufacture, gold build. So do yourself a favor, run through that, and you'll have a lot better luck in defending against the bad guys. Weak account hygiene. Oh my Lord. We have lost our way. Used to be in the late 90s, early 2000s, Windows admins were on accounts like you wouldn't believe. But now, when I'm doing assessments, now when I'm doing incident response all the time, I see system accounts that are allowed to do interactive login. What? Are you kidding me? And people are like, yeah, we don't know how they got in. We don't know how they were able to spread throughout the entire network. Really? Well, you know what? Congratulations, you're paying your Bitcoin stupid tax. I don't have a whole lot of sympathy if you're doing something this really bad. Figure out what the user accounts need to have and lock it down. Keep it tight. And here's the thing. I'll grant you that folks like devs and other folks that are all agile they'll say, hey, I need admin or domain admin. You know what? That's fine. If they want that, give it to them. But that ain't their daily driver account. Please stop users from using an administrative account for daily use. As a pen tester, when I send a phish and I see that you're in the admin account, I do the little happy dance, and then I frown a little because I realize my report just got huge that I'm going to have to do because I'm about to crack your network open like a walnut. So don't fall for this. Lack of monitoring. This one kills me. How many folks do incident response in the crowd? A couple folks? All right. So when you go into an environment, do you have clients that say, man, we don't know how they got in, and we didn't see them do a thing. They were stealthy. You hear that? Yeah? Yeah? And then you look at the logs? Yeah, you know. And you're laughing because you know. You just see people, they're like, yeah, we don't know how they brute forced the account. They were stealthy. And you open up the Windows event log, and it's like, bleh. And you're like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is stealthy to y'all? And they're like, yeah, we had no idea. You know what? It's stealthy if you're not looking, but it isn't stealthy if you look. Every single attack creates some form of forensics artifact. Know what the common attacks are, know what to look for. If you know what to look for, hunting bad guys becomes so much easier. Whew. Bad backup practice. This right here is the root of the problem when it comes to ransomware. If everybody had good backup strategies, as soon as that little pop-up that says, hey, we need Bitcoin, you should just be like, YOLO, and do the backup. All too often, though, people have forgotten. They don't do it. Do you guys know the 1, 2, 3 rule for backups? You need at least 3 backups, 2 different media, ideally, and 1 off-site. That 1 off-site, bless you, that 1 off-site is one that I cannot overstate. I had the same client that I was referring to that was really upset about the malware. We went in and we were trying to fix their situation, and it turns out that their backup strategy was the main server that had the corporate crown jewels. It was just a USB drive attached all the time. So when that thing got zapped by ransomware, the backup drive got zapped too. That 1 off-site is what's killing people. Anytime you hear in the news somebody saying, yeah, we had to pay, I guarantee you the safe bet is they don't have an off-site or a cold storage backup. Please do it. Some other things that y'all can do that just kill me is phishing. If you held a gun to a pen tester's head and said, hey, you got to get into a network, how do you do it? Anyone that's worth their salt is going to say, I'm going to phish, I'm going to spear phish, I'm going to do social engineering. And the reason why? It works. Now here's the thing that kills me. As an industry, we have collectively said our users are dumb. Our users are dumb. They click stuff. They click links that they shouldn't click. Well, that's true. I come from a blue-collar background. My dad worked in a steel mill. My brother briefly worked in a steel mill. It's a scary place, right? Like, when you punch your time card, it says, like, safety is job number 1. It's been X number of days since a fatality at this plant. So if somebody's, like, walking across a catwalk at the steel mill, and they fall off the catwalk, if that happens once, they're like, hey, you know what, that's a shame on Bill, you know, he maybe wasn't harnessed in right, or he wasn't following protocol. But if then Rick, and then Susie, and then Jimmy, and then Michelle, if these people keep on falling over the railing of this catwalk, what the hell kind of plant manager are you to be like, man, these people are dumb? No, it's the catwalk at a certain point. The fact that our email solutions, the fact that our web filtering solutions are doing such a piss-poor job of protecting users from themselves, it's no longer the user's fault. It's our fault. If you want to make a ton of money in InfoSec, figure out how to fix this problem. I got some ideas. Over beers or, you know, coffee, it's still kind of early. We can chat. I'd love to, you know, make this industry better, but phishing is no longer a user problem. It's an industry problem. We've got to get better about it. Same with drive-by download. One thing that I recommend, this is a hack, like a process hack that I got from a buddy, John Strand, years ago, and it works amazing. You can do internet whitelisting at work. And people like do that and they're like, no we can't. Yes you can. You absolutely can. And here's how you do it. Every 3 days, Alexa, it's a company, a marketing company that Amazon bought a couple years back. Every 3 days, they release a new list of the top 1 million web pages, or most visited web domains. Rank them by order. What you do is you download that list, and you figure out what your cutoff line is. 10,000, 20,000, I don't care. You say, anything above this cutoff line, we're just going to whitelist and allow anyway. You want to go to Facebook? Good luck, God bless. You want to go to Twitter? Hey, have at it. Anything that's below that starts getting strange. Now, I'll grant you, you're going to have a couple systems or cases of where somebody needs to go to like a business partner site or something weird. Work with them to figure out what needs to be on that list. Once you've got that list, though, everything on that list is golden, nothing else is permitted. Then, and here's what the trick of this is so that users buy into this all right, you allow any user to call the help desk and say, hey, my name's so-and-so, I need this domain opened up, and here's why. The help desk writes it, says, here's the person who requested it, here's the reason, here's the exception, go. There's not a single auditor that will flunk you based off of that. Now, the only catch is if you're in DOD and NERC SIP. Like, those are different. But in the main, everyone else, that's going to be really good. And this kills drive-by download dead. Any code can run. The fact that we still have to have antivirus boggles my mind. If we had proper application whitelisting, things would be so much harder for the bad guys. And I know everybody's like, well, it's really hard to do good, app locker settings. A buddy of mine who works at a financial services company came up with a crazy idea that works beautifully. On their Windows systems, they have basically done, and this is going to be crazy, you got to hear me out here. They made Microsoft an untrusted publisher. All right, so let that settle in. What that means is you can't run Office, you can't run PowerShell, you can't run cmd.exe. And what he does then is he will make exemptions for your group based off of what you need for your day-to-day business function. So if you're doing like the call center and you need the call center apps, they whitelist that. If you're a financial analyst and you need these apps, they whitelist it. If you're an admin, though, this is the cool thing. By GPO, because you can use GPO to push out the app locker settings, if you log in with an administrative maintenance account, you're allowed to use PowerShell. You're allowed to use command.exe. As a pen tester, I hate going against that guy's network because all my tools, my interpreters, everything just dies because he's whitelisted everything. And you might be saying, well, right, my company's big. This place isn't small. The way they did it is they ate that elephant one bite at a time. They just went from group to group to group, and a week at a time, they just got every group folded in. It took them a while, but pen testers hate going after his network. Oh, unrestricted network traffic. This one... Okay. Let me ask you this. If you see workstation to workstation traffic, is that weird? Yes. Oh, hell yes is the answer. Yeah, there is nothing good that's coming of workstation to workstation traffic. If you can't see that, you're blind to a whole slew of attacks and issues. Figure out how to see workstation to workstation traffic. Let's flip it out a different way. What if you have a DMZ device and that DMZ host is initiating a command or a TCP outbound or UDP outbound? Is that weird? Maybe. Like if it's a mail server, that's expected. If it's your DNS server, expected. What about your web servers? Oh, you know what? I've got a lot of clients that have been popped that would beg to differ. They're like, yeah, these web servers initiate communications all outbound all the time. Well, how long have you been seeing that? Oh, about a year and a half. Oh, so what you're saying is you've been popped for about a year and a half. Most DMZ systems are not doing outbound communications. There are exceptions, DNS, mail, maybe a file transfer system. But in the main, outbound communication is weird. Look for that. Also, restrict what your normal users can do. It kills me that people have as an industry, we've actually gotten pretty good about our ingress on the firewall when people try to come in from the internet. But egress is just a horror show. I mean, it's a dumpster fire. You know, you allow outbound anywhere via any protocol, via any port, as an attacker, woo! And the reason that this kills me is people will tell me, they're like, Mick, you know, one of the things that we didn't see was that there was no way that we could protect the key exchange going out. A lot of this ransomware, they have to phone home and say, hey, I'm about to do this encrypt. Let's share the public-private key so that you can, at a later date, decrypt these files. And they're like, yeah, we didn't see the key exchange. Yeah, I'm sure you didn't. Because you allow anything going anywhere over any port. Lock that down. Please. Finally, no or weak antivirus. I get that some of you guys are in like healthcare where you got like thinly provisioned systems. Same with manufacturing or power control systems. But you know what? There are solutions that will work for smaller systems. Please look into them. At the risk of being a sales pitch, we've got an endpoint protection tool called Vision that works pretty well on detecting these sorts of things. Find something that works. Just saying that, oh, this is a small VM or this is a small blah is no excuse. Antivirus is only 20% effective. But, let me ask you this. On Monday, when you go to work, are you going to be like sitting down with your coffee, opening it up and just be like, yup, another week. What to do, what to do. Boy, I'm going to be bored this week. I got nothing to do. No, everybody's running around with their hair on fire. And people say, well, but it's only 20% effective. You know what, 20%? That's a whole extra day every week. So you know what? I get 20% isn't great, but I'll take what I can get. So any questions about those rants and rails and craziness? No? All right. I'm going to give you some more concrete things that you should be looking at when it comes to detecting and preventing the scourge from running on your network. File permissions. On your file network shares, why the hell does everybody have full control? Full control is not needed. If people need to write, give them write. If people need to read, give them read. But full control is a little special extra sauce that allows them to do things like overwrite document and element metadata. And many of the attack tools, many of these ransomware systems will actually try to overwrite the modified access create timestamps so that they can hide and fly under the radar. If you give them full control, you're making it easier for the bad guys. Now, this might not stop all ransomware, but there are some variants that do get stopped by this. Here's one that's a little controversial: file auditing. Now, how many people have enabled file auditing on a machine? Yep. What's it do to performance? Has anybody enabled it and it just totally craters? I've done that. Yep. Here's a little pro tip. Be selective where you do this. If you do this on the OS drive and you have this file access audit enabled on like your system directory, you're going to hate life. Don't do that. That's not what this is intended for. Anyone who starts complaining too much they might have done that. What I would encourage you to do is figure out where your very sensitive documents are on your file shares, the stuff that you don't want the ransomware running, and turn this on for them, and then monitor the Windows event IDs that are associated with access and modify, and be on the lookout for this. The thing that kills me is people are like, yeah, we had no idea that this one program was running and from this one machine, and it was programmatically listing through all of the files on our hard drives and accessing them one at a time, one after the other, and then it went from drive to drive to drive. Yeah, we had no idea that that was happening. Really? How stealthy is that? Not so much. And people, it just kills me when people say that they had no idea that the bad guys were running rampant through their network. This is an effective tool if you use it. Please use it. Another one to point out, and this is a little kind of fun if you're a data geek like me, is looking for encrypted files. Encrypted files look hella different than a regular file. Regular file is going to have a character distribution set like this. This is what you're looking at here is the relative letter frequency of English, of the English Wikipedia instance. So, and as you can see, it's not an even pattern. To combat character frequency analysis on modern cryptography systems, what they do is they will actually make it so that this frequency looks like a flat line. So if you have a text file where the frequency is flat, that's weird. You can detect for this. There's tools that will help you find that. Another one this one's like a real dynamite one, and if you're not doing this, I highly recommend to be doing this. There's the MAC time and offsets. So in NTFS, there's actually two different MAC time sets. There's one that's exposed to the users that users could potentially modify, and then there's one that the kernel only can modify. Now, Microsoft has not released the API for interacting with the kernel one, which is awesome, because what will happen is the bad guys will take that executable or that file and they'll encrypt it, and then what they will oftentimes try to do is revert the MAC times to what it was prior to doing the encryption, so that if you're looking for, odd access times, they can catch that. And so what they do is they'll say, okay, here's what the MAC set was before we did the work, they encrypt it, and then they stomp the MAC set again. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is they're only modifying that first set, the one that we know how to modify. They've not altered the kernel one. So what you can do is look for a mismatch between those two, and you can catch them super easy. We've got a quite a few of our clients at Binary Defense are using this as a detection technique. Now, I'll warn you, there are a couple false positives. There's some document processing machines, like some OCR type tools that will sometimes modify this. But you can, once you whitelist this and figure this out, it's a really dynamite way of detecting this. Here's a great blog post on how you do this. This site actually has the technique that I talked about. I'll leave that up for a second. So I see some people wanting to take pictures. Basically walks through what I talked about. So here's, if you do a search on GitHub for this find PCB crypto PS1, that's the actual PowerShell script that the author of that blog posting created, and it allows you to look for those offsets. Now, on most versions of Windows, there's a helper PowerShell module that you need to import prior to running that, but it's well documented and it's really easy to use. If y'all run into any issues with it, shoot me an email and I'll be happy to give you pointers on how to run it. It works fast. That's the best news about this. Because it's just looking at the metadata on the file, it's not scanning the files, you can rip through a very large network share in just a matter of minutes. Other things to be on the lookout for is detect when things are starting to use too many file handles. Normal users only have a handful of files open at a time. Normal processes only have a handful of files open at a time. What you can do is run this command, and I grant you, like, it's like a little bit of a long command here, but what you're doing here is you are grabbing the file objects. That's what this PS resources is. So you're grabbing the 10 most greedy in terms of files that are open for each process. Run this a couple times on a host and you've got yourself a baseline. Run it again later and you can see if people are deviating from it. Now, I see some folks going, it's kind of tedious. I don't want to have to run this command on every single machine. Okay, fair enough. But you know what's really cool? Check this out. Git process supports a command argument called -computer, and then you can specify a remote host, either by host name or IP address. And that will allow you to do this, like reach out and touch different hosts on your environment. So it's crazy powerful, really good. So this is how you detect. Now let's move into some things that you can do to really trip up the bad guys. You can do infinite recursion with a thing called junctions. So NTFS allows a thing called junctions. They're kind of like symlinks in Unix. What you do is you make a pointer where folder A points to folder B and folder B points back to folder A. Now, I say it's not infinite, or I put infinite in quotes, because I once had somebody who was from Microsoft in a class when I was talking about this technique, and they were like, well, actually, Mick, it's not infinite. And I was like, really? And they ran a script that had a counter. And so it only allows you to recurse 4,294,000,000 times, right? So, yawn. Okay, yeah, that's true. So here's how this works in creating these junctions. So you got this junction point like this, and then as soon as somebody tries to do like a directory /s or dir /s to enumerate your entire drive, which is how these systems work, right? CryptoLocker needs to know which files it's going to go against. What you do is this. They fall into this trap. And so all of a sudden they're just scanning, and it slows them down dramatically. It's lovely. Now, one word of warning. If you do this, which I highly recommend you do, if you do this, make sure you make an exception in your backup software. Just learn from my mistakes is all I'm saying. Yeah, it's a doozy. I thought that we would be releasing this in Q2 of 17, but I've actually got a little extra time. I found that I was flying a little more than I was anticipating, and when I'm on flights, I like to code versus just like sitting around. So I'm hoping that this will release sometime around Turkey Day. I've got a lot of questions though on like how it should work, like what it should work. I saw you guys kind of leaning forward when I was talking about like how do we detect, how do we alert, how do we notify. I'd love to hear your input. Same to you, internet. You know, I don't have the answers to that, and I don't think that there's going to be any one way that we can really win that. But what I want to do is make it so that this tool has different options. You know, for some places, having that prompt like we currently have is going to be fine. Other places will want emails, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Let me know. I'd love to fold in your ideas, and I'll give you full credit and like put a little comment, a little shout out. So, or you know, if you're a PowerShell ninja, like feel free to put in your changes yourself. So, just want to say thanks for your time, thanks for your questions, and also thanks internet for watching. And this is my first time at Secure West Virginia, so thanks for having me. Had a good time. So, any questions, comments?
An idea, we use Pushbullet a lot.
You use what now?
Pushbullet, have you ever heard of that? Basically, you can send, what Pushbullet does is you can set it up in a couple accounts for your admin, and you can send, I know in Linux it's really easy, it's just one command line and you can send notifications, and we use that a lot because you can set it so it goes off on your phone, go off on your computer, go off on all these different things. And then at different times you can turn it off. So if you don't, you know, if I'm here, I have mine turned off, so it's not emailing me all day long on alerts and stuff. But that would be a solution, maybe.
Okay. All right. So for the internet, the comment was looking into a tool like Pushbullet that allows you to have the system choose like how it gets notified. Like you can push it to email or SMS or things like that. Yeah, I would love. Yeah, let's chat. I'd love to learn a little more. There's one of the things we use at Binary Defense is a tool called Zendesk, and that has you can do different notification methods through there. So I'm kind of familiar with that concept. What I'm hoping to do is making like an abstraction layer where you can just say, here's the alert, and then you choose which method it gets pushed out to.
Yeah, so what it usually does with Pushbullet is you just send it to their account and they decide how you want it. So if you have one admin that just wants it on their phone, wants it on, you know, all these computers, then that's fine. He set up put his Pushbullet however he wants.
Okay.
And the next guy can be different. So, you know, it's not just phones, it's not just, you know, so you can set it up customized.
Okay. So again, for those watching at home, the concept was that you could use tools like Pushbullet or others that allow you to customize how you, as the consumer of those alerts, get them. So yeah, that's definitely something I'd love to chat more about. And it shouldn't actually be too tricky. And right, like the thing that I'm constantly being reminded of is things like that, like there's going to have to be different methods because there's going to be some folks that can't use cloud notifiers like that. Like some environments won't be able to do push to SMS or whatever. So, you know, we might need to do some PowerShell remote notifications or syslog pushes and things like that. But like honestly, the way I look at it is the more notification modules we have, the more useful this tool is going to be. So I'd love that for real. That'd be very helpful. Yes, sir.
Quick comment. I heard there was a talk right after lunch about Windows timeline.
Yep.
Some people might like it.
So the comment is right after lunch. There's a talk about Windows timeline and timestamps, and I'll tell you this: like it's going to kill me, but I'm going to miss part of the Buckeye game to watch that talk because that's near and dear to my heart. One of these days, Bucks. I'm sorry, but you know, being a geek is a little more fun than watching football.